Lessons learned, a conversation with Bill Richards, Amanda Fielding, Rick Doblin and David Nichols. We are at the Beyond Psychedelics conference that took place in Prague, Czech Republic on June 2018.
Must be dreaming that, even in Czechoslovakia, of all places, there's this group of bright, interested, well-educated, motivated people, About a month ago, I was in Lisbon helping to train 100 new researchers for a research project with Compass. With treatment-resistant depression from 10 different European countries. And I thought, am I dreaming? Is this really happening? The research is just expanding and expanding and expanding. When I was at Yale a few decades ago, psychedelics were totally taboo. The head of psychology of religion wasn't the least bit interested in religious experience, Now there are 2 new research projects with psilocybin starting this year in the Department of Psychiatry, and a whole division of the department, about 10 people, very excited about psychedelic research. This is Yale, and it's just incredibly hopeful. So if I can find any anxiety these days, it's just, let's not mess it up, folks. Let's as Rick was saying, let's talk respectfully to the repressive, skeptical forces in the world in language they can understand. Let's understand that some people aren't as knowledgeable as we are about the safety and the efficacy of psychedelics, and they need some education, patiently given. Some have had difficult, unresolved experiences, or kids who had a bad trip and dropped out of college after I paid all that tuition, or whatever. And you have to understand where people are coming from, and not the. I'm trying not to even use the word Timothy Leary anymore. I was recently giving a talk, and a girl raised her hand and said, "Who was Timothy Leary?" So wonderful to have that question. He became a kind of an icon, but he was only one of many researchers back there. And he had his strengths and his weaknesses, and he was one struggling human being, as all of us are. But he made the mistake of just ignoring the authorities, that they're going to die off and then the new generation will take over. And it didn't work that way, and that sometimes the younger generation becomes the rigid forces when they grow up. So let's patiently, compassionately communicate and share this incredible frontier that we discover ourselves on. And welcome to the club, guys.
I suppose my story is that I got inspired by LSD in 1966. And I'd always thought that my mission was to water the desert. And then I realized the desert is the human brain, and my mission is to water the desert of the human brain, spreading the knowledge of the value of psychedelics, because to me it was an incredible value I found in LSD. And so when Prohibition closed in on the magic which the era of the 60s brought, I realized that one had to be clever in fighting the taboo and try to educate those in power by bringing an evidence-based, scientific evidence base to their mistaken drug policy. And the only way forward to get these compounds accepted in the world was through the very best science. So then the question was how I, as someone who had left school at 16, could possibly bring the very best science to these prohibited compounds. And so that was the game I played for the next 30 years. And now we have, I think, shown through the science that these are incredible compounds which can work at many, many different levels, from healing sickness, but also inspiring cognitive enhancement, spirituality, new insights, and they are indeed the fruit of the gods, which our ancestors knew so well. And I slowly think that now the tide is changing, and we can actually carry out quite major research, and people are happy and beginning to realize what wonderful compounds they are. And I think it's wonderful to be here with all of you, and I think we all realize that it's a movement which is going to get faster and faster in its evolution and spread around the world. And I think it's wonderful to be here. Thank you.
And I think finally I've just learned about love. I've learned so much about loving myself, about loving others, and through these substances I've learned that there's love woven through the universe. I mean, my most spiritual experience, I would say, of my whole life was under the influence of MDMA, and wondering why I didn't just fly off into the universe and the infinite space, and I'm so little and the universe is so big. And I kind of got this sense that somehow or other I didn't fly away, and that was, in my mind, I started attributing that to gravity, and I started feeling like that there was this loving force in gravity, and I felt like I was cradled in the arms of gravity, and it felt as warm and as nurturing as a lover, and that this was sort of the universal lover, and that there's something woven through everything, and that that's sustained me. And ever since that experience, which is from 1985, I've never been as lonely as I was at times before that, and I've learned to be grateful for all of that.
I started researching psychedelics in 1969. Controlled Substances Act was passed in 1970. It was a kiss of death to do research on psychedelics. Somehow I got a grant from the National Institute on Drug Abuse that paid for my salary and my students for 28 or 29 years. And so I became sort of the only person. So if you were in a medical school and you wanted to, and there were many students that wanted to hear seminars about psychedelics or hallucinogens, as we were forced to call them, I was the only person that they could get. And I'd go, and the seminar rooms would always be packed. And they'd say, boy, we never had so many people here. So I could see the interest and excitement, but there were all these obstacles. So I was fortunate to hook up with people like, well, Rick Doblin, when he was a young, very young, pre-MAPS guy. And he decided he wanted to make MDMA into a drug. And he checked out how much it would cost, and it was prohibitive. And we met at Esalen. He said, could you do it, David? And I said, yeah, I could do that. And so we made him a kilogram of MDMA for $4,000. And Rick Strassman wanted to do a study with DMT, and I said, you should do it, Rick. You're a psychiatrist. You're at a university. You could do it. And I worked with Rick. We met with Danny Friedman. He did the study. You all know it was DMT, the spirit molecule, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But he said, if I get all the approvals and nobody will make the DMT, can you do it? And I had made the MDMA for Rick, and I said, yeah, I can do that. And so I made the DMT for Rick Strassman. So now that caused all, the DMT spirit molecule, which I'm not sure I completely agree with, but at least, it was popular. And then psilocybin, Rick Strassman wanted me to make psilocybin, but one of the reagents that you had to use didn't detonate spontaneously if it was pure. And my technician said, I'm not going to use that. So we spent a long time finding, and actually made Rick Strassman really angry at us because we didn't deliver what he thought we should. And I said, we're trying to find a way to do it. The method they use to make psilocybin now is basically a variation of a method we developed in my lab. When I did that chemistry, you just had to make sure the drug was super pure, 99.9+%. So the MDMA was super pure, it's lasted for years and years. The DMT was pure, the psilocybin's pure. The FDA has changed their regulations now. They say if you want to do any studies in humans, your drug has to be what's called GMP certified, made by good manufacturing practices. So that 400,000 that Rick's talking about, that's basically what it costs to make pretty much what we made for $4,000. And most of that is paperwork to satisfy these GMP requirements. Had those requirements been in place back then, you wouldn't be here today. It was because we were at the right time in the right place, the stars were shining right, and we had the opportunity. And I was devoted to make this happen. And you need to be devoted, dedicated, you need to have pure intention, and there's a place for everybody. Who would have thought that a synthetic chemist would have been responsible for creating all these things that have opened up the possibilities for the clinical studies? I moved it in the direction it needs to go. And so you all may have a place in your own lives where you can make a contribution. It may seem insignificant at this time, but in the long run, if you remain devoted and you believe that these things can really help humanity, we're going to see a new type of medicine, probably called psychedelic psychiatry or psychedelic medicine, that's going to revolutionize the way people are treated. So keep the faith, work hard, be honest, and collaborate and help other people get to the same place, because we need to do this for the sake of humanity.